Welcome, everybody, back to the Built on Air podcast. We are in season 25, episode 2. Good to be back with you in July. Myself, Dan Fellers, Ali Alosa, and Camille Parks back as always. And last week we got an update on all the latest updates and everything. So hopefully if you missed that one, make sure you go and check it out, get all caught up in the latest news and updates and everything. So, and they didn't release anything new that I saw. So we're going to jump right into today's segment. We're going to learn about bulk updates, bulk uploads. What are we talking about, Camille? Bulk updates.
Yeah, this came from a use case that I'm supposed to build about a week and a half from now. And before I did that, I was like, how do I actually want to lay that out in Airtable? And the general idea is what I'm going to go over with a different kind of setup than the real use case I had in mind. But hopefully the general idea is somewhat useful for other people. I set up 3 different automations to do the same thing. One is an all-in-one automation that does everything using some scripts. And then 2 are, if you don't have the option of using scripts, this is how you would do it with just native Airtable. Same result, it's just a little slower.
Before you jump in, I'll say only Camille would plan a week and a half. You have to build it in a week and a half, and you're already prepping for it.
This is a project, being very careful to be vague, that we built in Airtable, and when I describe it to other Airtable folks, they're like, should that be in Airtable? And I'm like, no, God, no, of course not. But this is the tool that we had, and so it worked. And then because it's already so big and complex, and I was really trying to think of what is the simplest user experience that I could put in here that wouldn't confuse people, that just sort of would slide right in. And this is kind of what I came up with, somewhat inspired by the person who originally asked for this set of features, but simplified a little bit so it's not, there's a bit less clicking, I think.
Yeah. Cool. Let me get your screen up. There we are.
All righty. So the use case I'm going with for this demo is, imagine that you're planning one or more parties, and for that party, there could be multiple attendees, and each attendee should be able to have their chosen meal. So someone might get a sandwich, someone might get a salad, that kind of thing. And if it's a big event with a lot of people and suddenly they don't have sandwiches anymore, and you need to bulk update all the people who are going to that party to choose something else for them, this is the general idea of what I'm going for, in terms of I need to update several things that are linked to, in this case, launch party, or I need to create a bunch of attendees for launch party in one go and assign them what their lunch options are in one go. So with that, I'll start with the simplest. There needs to be people who are going to the launch party. So of the update type, and then this is sort of a preview of what we're going to do later: new, revise, and remove. And first things first, I want to add some people. These are all just random fake records. I had Omni generate for me. Full disclosure, Omni helped create the records. I did basically all of the schema. So I'm just going to stop at 5. And then for items, just pulling this up so you guys can see what our standard options are. Now, you'll see this emoji placed all over the place in this set of interfaces and behind the scenes. I used an hourglass to denote these are temporary items. Whenever you're done with this screen, everything that's in these temporary fields is going to be cleared out and set back to blank. So let's say I want to give everybody the default meal. Now, this button has now appeared, pre-fill contacts. That's going back to, I have two different sets of automations that basically do the same thing. This one does not have the script in it. This one does. I'm going to do the one with the script in it because I modified it this morning and I want to test that I didn't break it. I didn't. Great. So I just said the standard, the default is everybody gets water and a Caesar salad. But if I want to go back and edit and say, well, Linda wants a Coke and Linda wants a turkey sandwich, and maybe Fatima still wants water, but she wants a ham sandwich or something like that. That allows me to, in this temporary field, do that pick and choosing of items to add to these contacts. But the way that this base is set up, it's not just parties and contacts, it's parties and contacts. And the table is called requests, but think of it like attendees. So I need to create new records that represent Alex going to launch party and receiving water and Caesar salad. So if it's a new type request, that's really simple. If I scroll down, it gives me a little summary of, I'm not editing any existing records, I'm creating 5. So I'm going to hit create, and hopefully this part of the script isn't broken either. It's not. Great. So that's going to go in and clear out some things, and then the second update record automation should be clearing out some things too. I see Airtable is reconnecting for me. Actually, I think my Wi-Fi may be a little down.
Uh-oh.
Or Airtable.
Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah. In the time between our last episode and now, there was a mild outage.
Mhm.
There was.
It says reconnected. I am expecting this to go back to empty. So it's possible that something broke behind the scenes, but let me just, in a new tab, show you what just happened. So here's even more of those temporary fields that you saw before. And if I go to requests, I now have 5 records, all for launch party with those 5 contacts I clicked on. Their type is new. And then here's the actual items that they're getting. And then we haven't made use of these 2 fields yet, but I'll go over that in a second. If I go to contacts, their temporary items is now blank. So I can go back and reuse them if I so choose. So with that, let's say I want to revise some requests or attendees that are already linked to this launch party. So this page has changed a little bit. This does make use of conditional visibility. So if you're on the Pro plan, you're not going to have the benefit of having conditional visibility. You might either have multiple sections on this page, or you might just have separate pages, one for new and one for revise/delete.
Yeah, I forgot that was gated.
Yeah, normally I try and do all of my demos from the perspective of a Pro plan user, but that is the one kind of thing that I'm making use of here that Pro plan users can't use. Basically, everything else is fair game. So the idea here is I could do the same sort of pre-fill options I could have before, but with a little bit extra as well. So let's say I wanted to selectively update these 2 people and I wanted to set them back to the default, I could do that. So if I hit bulk, it's not immediately overwriting their items, but it is filling in the temporary field what their new items will be. So if that looks good to me, I can go back and submit. I'm actually not going to do that, and I'm instead going to show a different option. I'm going to skip current and go for specific. I can say I want to give these people Sprite and pasta salad. And if I hit bulk, it should fill that same field with what I just selected and then reset these back for me. Again, if I'm done, I can hit update and it says these are the 2 that you're about to update. But lastly, I do want to go over the use of current. What current is going to do is copy and paste this field into this field. And the reason that's here is because it allows me kind of really quickly to say they're not going to match. I just know I have to update both Alex and Fatima at the same time. So Alex is changing his meal, but Fatima's just changing her beverage, for example. And that's each of these are basically just time savers. You don't have to use the pre-fill options. You could just go in directly and make your selections if you so chose. In the real example that this was brought up for, it would be hundreds of possible requests for any one like launch party at any given time. That's why pre-fill is pretty useful in this case. 5, not that crazy, but if you have a couple hundred, yeah, you're probably going to want to pre-fill some of these. And this select field that also has the temporary hourglass symbol is what controls which one to pre-fill, because I don't necessarily need to update every single request that's gone forward for launch party. I might just need to update some of them. And I chose the grid view option because it allows people to quickly select all if they need to, or they could copy and paste if they need to. Same thing with these. You don't need to use the pre-fill current because you could just copy and paste in that regard. So
that's frustrating where it's like there's some things I like the list for, but like you were saying, grid does certain things that list view can't. I wish that list view could support the grid like.
I would agree. I think list has some advantages because list will or can, I should say, be the full height of every single record, but grid can't. So you have to pick small, medium, large, basically. But list can't. You can't do this copy and paste stuff.
Yeah.
That and the summary bars I also really miss when it comes to a list view.
Yeah, I don't really make too much use of this because it's not really numeric, and because this is so narrow, it doesn't look great. But the idea of how many are you about to select, that you can get with the grid versus with the list view. And while I'm at it, I also made this a tabbed view so you could quickly go to, well, here's the only things that are going to be affected. These other 3 requests shouldn't change once I hit the update button here at the bottom. Great. So now a couple things have happened. The items have changed, but you'll notice this went from new to revise. So in the original use case, it was important to keep track of, is this a brand new request that's never really been modified, or is this a request that might have already come through and someone might have already approved and made the order, but now it's been revised? It was pretty important for that team to be able to know, oh, I might have to do something extra with this one because an order might have already gone out. So the automation knows to kind of flip that field from new to revise, and it matches whatever you've selected. And the last use case here is removing people from the launch party. So I might say for 2 of the ones that I didn't modify, I might take their requests and just remove them. The pre-fill option went away because if you're removing somebody, you don't need to change what they're getting. You're just saying they're not getting anything. They're not going to the party. So same thing. It tells me what my options are. It leaves the items where they are because it just sort of helps to identify requests of like, oh yeah, they're getting the turkey sandwich. We'll have one more turkey sandwich than we thought we would because Linda's no longer going, that kind of thing. And that's the kind of high level overview of what this bulk updater tool does. And from there, I can go into behind the scenes of how the automation works. And then the alternate automations you could use if you didn't have availability with scripts.
Yeah, but overall, this is very, very useful use case. there's a lot of stuff going on here. That's pretty cool. I'm excited to see under the hood.
It's pretty simple, mostly because I'm really updating one field. But you could extend this to be, if there's 5 different things that you need a bulk updated once, you just scroll a little bit more to the right, but the plumbing is all the same, basically. So if I go into my automations, you'll notice there's only 3, and you might only need 1, like I said, if you have scripts. But if you don't have scripts, you'll need these top 2. I'll go with the script first because that's the button I was clicking during the demo. So trigger, pretty simple. Because this is, pretty workflow oriented, when button is clicked is when I did this. And again, I can benefit from conditional visibility. So I can say, well, don't even try to run this until certain conditions are met. And I want people to only do this from the interface. So that's why I picked that trigger. And then next thing, I'll just go to the data view really quickly. Under items, there's just a simple checkbox of these are the default options. And this find record step finds what those default options are so I can paste them in using the script. Now, this automation is broken up into 2 conditions. Either it's a bulk update type of new, or it's either revise or remove. These 2 can share the same script because they're targeting the same table to update. For new, what it's doing is it's finding all of the contacts that have their temporary project linked to whatever thing you just clicked on. In my case, I was only working off of Launch Party. And that tells me which records I need to use in order to create new requests. So the scripts, I tend to keep my demonstration scripts really simple. So one at a time, I'm just going to explain what we're doing. So first, I need to know which project, again, Launch Party, we're going to be using for the request table. IDs in this case is the list of contacts. Action tells me, wait, I've actually forgotten what action means because I've changed terminology in the middle of writing this. So I'll get back to action later. First things first, I need to know there are some records, depending on what I'm trying to do, that I need to create, and some records that I need to update. So if I chose the new option, I'm going to be creating new requests, but I also have to reset the contacts back to not having a temporary project linked to them, not having temporary items. So I need 2 different calls against 2 different tables. Or 1 against 2 different tables, I should say. Next, if I go back to the interface, just so you could see the 3 options of how do I want to pre-fill things. If that was not empty when you clicked the button, then I know I need to pre-fill each contact with stuff. So default items is pretty simple. I'm getting the IDs from that find record step of does default equal true. And then I'm updating just that one field with those items. If I've chose specific, then I'm getting I'll do this while I'm explaining the script. It would be pulling from this field, which is a field on the Launch Party record, and it would be putting that value in. And again, that's the only field it needs to update. But if pre-fill is empty, then I know that when if I look at behind the scenes of how this page is configured, this button, and I'm going to clear this out actually, this button and this button fire against the same automation. And using conditional visibility, that allows me to say, well, if pre-fill was not empty and you clicked that button, that means you're ready to go. You're ready to create the new requests, and you're ready to reset the contacts back to null. And the last bit is just pushing those updates and creates to the table it needs to go. And then if I exit out of here, the next is a condition inside a condition, which is a relatively new feature. Again, I was trying to keep this to like minimum infrastructure, if that makes sense. So again, if prefill is empty, then I know we're done, which means all of the temporary fields can go back to normal. If not, then only some of them need to go back to normal. Just get rid of the prefill options up at the top so I can go back and select a new option if I wanted. Revise and remove is very much the same. In fact, the script is pretty similar, except I don't need to interact with the context table at all. So from here about down, it's basically the same script. It's just only targeting the request table. So I don't need to create anything new. I'm just updating existing requests. And with that, these are the same as well, exactly the same as the conditions above. So that's how I was able to do it all within one automation and one of two scripts, depending on what you're trying to do. But if you don't have options with scripts, I was able to do it in two automations, one for contacts and one for requests. So in this case, when button is clicked is referring to this button here, which will conditionally appear depending on what you're doing. It is going to do the clear out the temporary items option first. That's because ideally I would have it after this loop, but you can't do that in Airtable automation, so it happens first. And then same thing as before, I'm getting all of the context that I need to update. I'm getting all of the items that are the default, that part's the same. But now instead of a conditional group, now I have a repeating loop. And inside of that repeating loop, and I'm repeating for each contact that's associated temporarily with this project, inside that are the conditions. And the conditions are what type of prefill is happening. If I'm prefilling with a default, then fill in that find record step. If I'm filling in with specific, which again, response to this, it would be pulling from this item here. And then same thing, same concept as the script before. If prefill is empty and you click to the button, well, that means you're ready to go. So in this case, create a new request for each contact linked to whatever project you're on, linked to that current contact in the loop, linked to the temporary items that are associated with this contact, and it would always be of type new. And then go back and clear out the contact's temporary fields. Requests, very similar, except that has the addition of prefill this request, what its currently requested items are. Current is not relevant if you're creating a new request because there is no current, it doesn't exist yet. So that's the only difference between these two automations other than the table it's updating.
Excellent. Okay, did I understand correctly? So the script is, if you have scripting, you can do it that way. Otherwise, you use the other two?
Yes. So you don't need 3 automations. You either need 1 automation or 2 automations.
And did you always have all 3 turned on? So you have both approaches running?
Yeah. They don't conflict. So I can do this and give everybody pasta salad and Coke. And if I do this, I'm hoping, yeah. So it's doing the same thing that the script, which again is the bulk button, it has the same end result. I might have gotten rid of the update button at the bottom that's connected to the non-script automations, but that was...
Okay. So they're connected to different buttons.
Yeah. So let me edit this page and then show there's 3 buttons here, prefill contacts or prefill requests, and it knows which of these 2 buttons to show based on whether it's new or revised. If it was new, it would say prefill contacts. If it were revised, it would say prefill requests, this one. And if it were...
maybe show where you set up that visibility?
Yeah, sure. So on any one of these buttons, bulk doesn't have any visibility. The update type for pre-fill contacts has to be new. And I only want it to show if we aren't pre-filling anything, or we're pre-filling with default. And then contacts, temporary contacts is not empty, because if I try to run this and I haven't selected anybody to add yet, then what's the point of the automation? It's not going to, the loop is going to be empty. So don't show the button until there's at least one contact to loop through in the first place. And then for pre-fill requests, that visibility is a little bit simpler. It's just, is the bulk type either revise or remove? And if pre-fill items is not empty. And again, pre-fill items is this field here, where it's what type of thing are you trying to pre-fill? And this itself has its own visibility, because it shouldn't be visible if you're removing. Again, you're not pre-filling. If you're removing people, you're just removing them. Mm-hmm. And then items has visibility, where if you're pre-filling with something specific, well, then you need to know which items are the specific ones you want to pre-fill. Otherwise, you don't need this field at all.
Love it. I find myself really missing the conditional visibility when I'm working on an account that doesn't have it. I'm like,
it's so useful. It unlocks so many things. You don't have to look at a bunch of things at the same time. Like if I zoom out a little bit, if I didn't have conditional visibility, right, I'd have the contact section and the existing request section on top of each other. And I guess you might be able to use that to your advantage if you wanted to add new people and revise existing people in one go. I suppose that could be useful, but I would find that a little bit confusing, because it's like, well, what am I doing exactly? And then you'd probably have to have two different pre-fill fields, because are you pre-filling the contacts or are you pre-filling your existing requests? So conditional visibility really helps in that you only have to give one link to people to say, oh, you need a bulk update, go to this page, and not, well, either go to this page or that page. You can give people one place to go, and they only have to look at what's relevant at the time.
Yep.
Yeah, the one drawback, it's not really a drawback, it's kind of the way it's designed, but I'm sure a lot of times you have the same like data set that you want to show, but maybe like filtered differently depending on visibility. So you might have one block that's visible if the status is X, and then a different version of that data if it's Y. And so when you want to change like the fields to show up in both, you now have to update two different things. So I've had cases where I've got like multiple blocks depending on visibility. Only one is going to show at any time, and you're constantly having to update all three blocks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's it only goes so far. Yeah.
But still very powerful that you could have conditional data showing.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously.
Yeah. But sometimes the maintenance becomes much.
Yeah, it is not always easy to remember, like especially like Dan, as you're saying, we have a couple of use cases where there's a bunch on the page if you were to go to edit, but if you're trying to find the exact grid that's currently visible when you're not in edit mode, it's like, well, now you've got to signal to yourself when you are in edit mode which of the like visibly similar grids is the grid you're trying to edit. And you can do that with either the name or the description sometimes, but sometimes you don't want to confuse your end users about, I don't understand what this description means, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah, there's a couple of things that make it a little bit hard to maintain over time if you have a bunch of stuff hidden.
Yeah, 100%. I love this approach, though. It makes me think of like the early days of interfaces when you couldn't add records at all, and you had to like make up automations like this to even add one record. Like you'd have the button click, add the record to that table. But like this is super useful when it comes to adding many things at the same time, which is awesome.
Yeah, over time, interfaces have gotten pretty far, and this is another time where, like, well, maybe you should make a custom interface for yourself if this is like a key workflow and conditional visibility is not cutting it, or anything like that. That might be useful to you, but this layout, the record review, I think is what it's called, is good enough, I think, for what I was trying to like show is possible. It gives me just enough where I can have helpful things like this of, okay, you're about to edit 3 things, even though there's 5 things in the table, things like that.
Yeah, the one thing I struggle with the record review is reusability, right? So a lot of time, like that's one of the benefits of the record detail sidebar is you could reuse that in other pages.
Yep.
And if you can't reuse these
all the time.
Very true. And I think I tried to explain this verbally before, but like this page, right? Bulk updater, this page actually has 2 parts to it. The whole page is called bulk updater, but this section here, which is basically a detail page, has its own name that you can only find in a couple of ways. Either like this, you have a when a button is clicked and it'll tell you the name of the button that's useful. But first of all, interface is on here twice. And buttons on here twice. That's bizarre. But like inbox record detail is what this is called. But like inbox is the old name for record review, I guess. But like you can't really control that. Depending on how you arrive at a page, though, you can. So pro tip, and again, I tried to explain this verbally and it wasn't helpful, I don't think. Add a button that triggers an automation and then go to that automation and then click this thing. And then you get the actual detail page for this thing. And then you can rename it.
I don't think I've ever seen this page.
I found it not by doing this, but this is the easiest way to do it. If you have Sandbox on and you were to edit this page, it'll say, oh, you've updated inbox record detail, and God help you if you've duplicated this page, because it'll say inbox record detail 2 every time you've duplicated it. So it's not 2, 3, 4, 5. They're all 2, even though they're different pages. So I went down the rabbit hole a little bit of being like, how could I possibly tell the difference between these very similar pages? The real use case that this was inspired by has, I want to say, 6 to 8 of these pages that are very similar, but they have clear differences in terms of how they're filtered and all of that. And you cannot tell the difference between them behind the scenes unless you jump through these series of hoops to rename the page. So I'm going to say bulk edit detail or something like that. If I publish this and then, well, now it's more specific. Now you know which page it really is. But boy.
Okay, so there's a lot going on here. Okay.
Yeah.
Because the way where I normally see it is from the field
dependencies.
Dependencies.
Field dependencies. It'll say inbox, and you're like, where is that? And those don't link. I wish these would link directly to that page.
I know. Oh my gosh.
It's updated here, but like it calls it a detail page because it is, but it's also like if you're not as familiar with building an Airtable, you're going to be like, but it's not a detail page. It's an inbox. It's a record review. So you're going to be looking in the wrong place probably. But yeah.
Okay, and then I'll go back to the edit page, that other tab.
This one?
Let's look at the URLs. Like, could we recreate? Because that page is that
you could reuse this, but not in the way that's useful. Like if you could I think, hold on.
Can you
I
link to
think you probably could. I just feel like let me get a hold on. I just feel
I don't think it'll like I've tried messing around with that for the side sheet detail pages, how it like does base 64 encoding. If you like
dang.
you, oh, annoying. I don't understand. But wait, how did you even get to this page again? Can you do that again?
Yeah, I was from an automation that is triggered by a button that is on the page.
Mm-hmm.
It does give you this link, but not from the dependency checker for reasons unknown, but you can find it from there. And that's how you open up the detail page without the sidebar attachment to it.
Helpful.
And now is that ID the page ID? Is that the same one as the outer level? That's unique to this record detail.
Yeah, let me put these side by side. So the page ID for the detail page ends in CMM and the full page ends in COH. So they're, yeah.
So they store them as a detail page. Why can't we reuse them?
I don't know.
Right.
Like, I don't understand. I've so many times, like I used to love record review and I set up all my initial interfaces as record review pages and then stopped doing it because I was doubling up on my work. Yeah.
Yeah, this is
now I wonder, so we'll have to test this. In MCP, you can get a list of all the page IDs. Does that give you the record detail pages or just the high level? Probably just the high level. Actually, I was looking at that the other day.
I don't know. And I don't know if you can like cheat with the MCP if you say, you can't do it with this type of page, obviously. But if you had a list view of projects and from the MCP, you said allow click into records, but provided a different page ID than the thing that was just created. Like it's not going to let me select, where did it go? It's not going to let me select this thing. Mm-hmm. But if you have the ID and you say to the MCP, use that one, I wonder if you can fake it. I don't know.
I don't think the MCP can create pages. I think it just lists them. I may be wrong on that.
I know Omni can, so it might be a thing of maybe you can force Omni to.
Yeah, maybe tell Omni like create this record detail page with this ID.
I've got Omni. All right, let's live test. All right, I'm gonna select this. Update the list interface to open the detail page when a record is clicked. I spelled clicked wrong.
Hopefully Omni can adjust.
Wild though. I've never seen that page before, but that's really helpful to be able to rename that page.
It updated.
Now hold on. Yeah, now hold on. Omni, why?
Interesting.
I suspect you didn't do it. It didn't. Why is that the interpretation of what I asked for? This is why I say I don't like Omni. It's not that it can't do useful things. It's that sometimes instead of just saying, oh, that detail page isn't compatible or whatever, it says, oh, I know what I'll do. I'll update the description to be the prompt. Why? Why would that ever be what I wanted?
Hey, it at least spelled click right.
Yes, thank you.
I mean, one thing I've noticed that, like, I'm wondering, and I don't know if this is new or not, but when you look at the dependency checker for a particular field and say that field is on a detail page, then that detail page is used across multiple interfaces. Then you'll see the detail page listed, and then you'll see also the other interface pages listed at the top. So what becomes really confusing to me is I start at the top of the list and I go down, but those other pages are only there because they're tied to the detail page. Like the field.
Okay. I think I see what you're saying. Yeah. So this is I think an example.
Yeah.
It is a little confusing because bulk edit detail, right, is only possible to be on bulk updater. So again, because Airtable is treating the whole page and the detail page inside of it as separate dependencies, there might be merit to that perhaps, but yeah, this is a little confusing.
Yeah. So I think my word of advice is if you're trying to like remove dependencies from something, like I often do, is start from the detail pages first, because that will clear your actual top list of the interface list, that bulk updater and projects at the top there.
If you can find your record detail page.
If you can find the detail page. Yes.
I often would just link to them from here. That would be so nice.
Yeah, they only expand and collapse. They don't go to the page like you can from automations.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like I'll often create a brand new interface with a list. Like I'll put a dashboard layout and just drag a bunch of different groups onto it. So I can just go to that page to switch them to the different detail pages for each table. Like without having to remember what page has it. I just create a brand new list and then I edit it that way. But yeah.
Okay, I've got one more. Go to your data layer for like requests. I think you added on requests. Okay, so for your select field, what are your reasons to use circles or click on the edit field and show all the different icons you can use? What are your reasons for
Jesus Christ, the recommended whatever. Here are all of my options.
Yeah.
So I chose there were a couple of reasons, right? I'm gonna go back here. Go away. Couple of things. If you're using the grid like I am, you have the native checkboxes that don't do anything. Like I can't like bulk unlink or bulk delete or anything based on some settings that I've included, but I didn't want to confuse people by having two blue checkboxes right next to each other. So that's why I didn't choose the check, which is the default. And I chose blue as opposed to green because green, well, actually, in this particular use case, and you can see remove is color coded red, blue is color coded revise, and green is color coded as new. I probably should have used a color that wasn't one of those three things to be like, this is a different concept. But at the time I was working on the revise functionality, and blue is revise, and that's why the dot is blue. And the other ones, like I'm not necessarily deleting things, and star and heart are like I'm favoriting, kind of. That's what I associated with them. So I didn't use that. The thumbs up, I think, could work in this use case, and flag felt like you're saying there's something wrong with this record, at least to me. So blue felt like the most not blue. The dot felt like the most neutral of these options in terms of selecting that wasn't already being used by Airtable's own UI to communicate something is selected.
I like that. I almost never use the dots, and I've seen you use them several times. And every time I see you use it, I'm like, oh, like that looks awesome. And I forgot that existed. Like,
this is one of those things. I forget which plan has a limitation as well, but some plans don't have all of these options.
Right.
So I think I'm probably going to get it backwards. I think all plants have the availability of each icon, but
Colors.
some plants only have green.
Mm-hmm.
But I could be wrong. It could be backwards. Maybe they have all colors, but only checkboxes. I don't know.
I think it might just be check and X on the free or the lowest plan.
Could be. In some way, this is also limited, but this is purely visual representation. And on the interface, right, I could have included a description that said, hey, if you're revising or removing, make sure to, use the checkboxes. You know what I mean? Like adding some text here so that people aren't confused about what they do. And that would, clear up confusion. Right now, it's like you go to this page and you just know what you're doing is what I'm assuming. But in reality, you would be including some field descriptions and some descriptions up here. And then I would probably add, when you click update, I would probably have it be require confirmation and say, hey, are you sure you're about to update a bunch of records, just so that if someone misclicks, they don't, ruin their data and all that. So again, this is a very bare bones way of getting the point across.
Yeah, but I like that differentiation between the default checkbox, because we can't really interact with the default checkboxes. Like we can't like trigger an automation or query which ones were checked in our automation. So they kind of are, the only thing you can do is like right click and then delete those records, I think.
Yeah, one of my biggest wants from an interface to automation improvement, obviously these buttons can trigger an automation, but they're all pointing at launch party. What I would want is, you can have buttons on a linked record visualization like this. What I want is to say, based on what is currently visible on my screen. So if I put in my own filter, or if I've moved to the selected tab like I've done, run an automation based on launch party, but include the visible records as another parameter, so that I don't need this select field, because this is data, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Allie.
No, I was just saying it drives me crazy.
Yeah, it's extra stuff that you kind of have to put in, and something that you have to consider. This is all in the revision history, so depending on what your workflow is, this could be really annoying to parse through. It's a bunch of, I selected it and I unselected it. You know what I mean? It's Airtable is keeping score, and sometimes you don't want to modify the data, and this kind of brings back to, is this a good use case for not using inline editing, but using the edit as form thing? And the answer is no. I tried. I really wanted it to be a good use case. It wasn't. We've got a couple more minutes. I suppose I can explain why. I'm going to go to a new one, right? If I change this page, and instead of being inline editable, switch this to form, edit is up here, and I can't control the placement. That's sort of petty, but that's fine. I'm going to hit publish and then just sort of explain why I find this to be not the best. What I want to say is, if I'm doing new, right, I then need to select which contacts to add, which I could do from this form. But if I choose revise, then I have to use that checkbox to indicate which records I want to revise, and I can't do that from here. So I would have to do, save, and then now, all right, there are no existing requests for this one, but then I would do the checkbox here, and then I'd go back to edit, and then I would say, okay, we'll pre-fill with the default items, right? And then hit save, and then I could switch the trigger of the automation to be whenever this is not empty or something, so I don't have to do a second button click. But it breaks up the flow of, I can't just do everything from the form. I have to finish the form, edit some stuff, go back to the form, and then submit. So it didn't quite work in this instance. The advantage of it if it did work out for me, is that there'd be a few less things in the revision history log, because both pre-fill items and items, for example, could be updated in one save operation, and I wouldn't see like everything piecemeal. Everything would just sort of be one action, and it's a little cleaner in that regard.
Agreed. I also wish you could have more than one edit button. Like
Yep.
let you do edit this section, then edit this section. Like,
yes, that's what I would like. I'm going to flip this to new really quickly just to sort of demonstrate. Even though inline editing is off, right, that doesn't have anything to do with the things down here. I can edit this just fine. So it's like conceptually, I get it, because I'm not editing after party. I'm editing contacts that happen to be linked to after party. But you know what I mean? Like, it's not if you were trying to look for one easy way to stop editing everything on this page, this isn't going to help you. You have to go back to the grid and turn off editability for this grid, which is separate from the editability of the whole page.
Yeah. Fascinating. Yeah, that's crazy. We explored a lot of things. This is very useful, and found a new Easter egg that I never knew about. So that's awesome.
Yep.
Thank you for sharing that, Camille. Hopefully that was useful. Hopefully you gained some insights into bulk updates and conditional visibility and accessing all the pages and everything. So lots of useful tips in here. Thank you. And we will be back next week for another deep dive into a fun, exciting use case. So have a great week, and we'll see you next time.